Well, what I have here today is a freshly rebuilt Victor number 4. Not 4A, number 4. This is the all-brass, fairly rare Victor number 4 reproducer. It's on an HMV 101, because frankly it sounds best on these machines. You know, I mean, there's a lot of machines that use the number 4, or could use it. Any acoustic Victor made before, you know, the orthophonic era could use a number 4, but this machine with its horn, this was actually a machine made for the number 4. That's what they put on these in Great Britain, would be this one. But we're going to test the Victor, and they are identical in construction, really, to their English counterparts, except that the lettering is different. It doesn't say His Master's Voice, so on and so forth. And there's a little bit of a design, which we'll go into later. But this is a test just to see how it's playing. We have the streamlined strut. That's Ambrose and his orchestra on the HMV 101. Let's see how she sounds. And there we go. Playing well. Actually, I've played a number of records on this already as I tuned it. And that is the number 4 reproducer, all brass Victor 4A. It was a compromise reproducer that, Victor came up with for its customers while they had to wait to perfect the orthophonic reproducer. These were good enough to play the older acoustic records from the teens or the early 20s, yet they could also handle the electric records that were just coming on the market, the Victor Electrics and so on. And take a closer look at it there. You see the difference here between the HMVs, and I'll show you in a minute, and these. The design here. The lettering on the back, I'm not sure the camera's picking that up. If you ever see 4A on it, that will be this. This is a 4A, what's left of it. I don't know if you can read that on the back. It says it right on it, 4A. But you can see what happens. splitting, cracking. This is pot metal. Is pot metal holy? I mean, it will still look good from a distance, but this will never play again, really, to be worthwhile. I tried to get this one to play. You can see I have a gasket in there. I used exhibition tube gaskets in there and everything to get it. Never really could get it to the point where it would line up properly, and it just didn't sound good. So we retired this one to the parts bin. And the English ones, as I showed you before, this is the early English HMV number 4 reproducer. They never used the A prefix. This was the number 4. You can see it's got the gold lettering under the diaphragm rather than on the back. On the back is nothing at all. And there's no design here. This is all smooth. This is all brass. HMV continued to use an all brass number 4 reproducer far beyond the time when Victor had been. I think Victor was only a few months. HMV was a few years. This is the other style of all brass HMV reproducer number 4. As you can see, there's no lettering underneath the diaphragm, and you will find it on the back. And this is actually the type of reproducer that we found on the HMV 101. The earlier 101s, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure this machine had this reproducer to start with. I think it might have been put on there. It might have had a pot metal reproducer that cracked or something happened to it. It really isn't old enough to have. This should be on the very earliest front crank 101s, and this is not a front crank machine. It's early enough not to have the auto brake and all of that. I'm not sure it's early enough to have this. There's no number plate on it, so I really can't tell by serial number. But it probably would have had an all brass one like this. There is another version, which I don't have here, of the HMV number 4, the later version, which has a brass front ring, but the back is pot metal, and it has all the same problems as the Victor ones do, with cracking, splitting, swelling. They become so tight they're impossible to open to replace the gaskets, and they end up breaking and snapping, and they basically, like their Victor counterparts, pretty useless. But they're good for scavenging needle bars, things like that, should you need one. You know, the pot metal ones are good for that. This one, I've probably shown this before in another video. A friend of mine actually ran a small number of aluminum backs for these. These are custom machined. A number 4 back. It uses an HMV front ring from one of the pot metal ones that had a pot metal back that broke. And it's just an experimental unit. He was making some for himself, and I had him do one for me. I believe I also have a brass one he did. One brass one. This makes it a very light unit. It's a much better idea. I really wish both Victor and HMV had thought to use machined aluminum. Not pot metal, but actual aluminum. Like the Swiss did with their reproducers. Now, there is another type of number 4 out there that you will find on the German Electrola 106s. That is wholly pot metal, just like the Victor one is. That means the front ring and the back, all pot metal, and it's a nasty mix of pot metal. Even though those machines were made in the same factory that made the 101s in Great Britain, Hayes, Middlesex, all of that, the mix is not as good, I don't think, because every one I find is just so split, cracked, and crumbling, it's impossible to do anything with them. And I end up having to source an all brass number 4 from UK eBay or something like that. But there you go. That's the line. Oh, I was going to show the US one. Let's take the old needle off of there before I stab myself. And the UK one, let's see if I can get that on there like that. It's a little awkward. I don't want to drop it. But you can see the difference in the front ring, a little bit of a design there. But other than that, they are the same unit. A little bit of patent sharing between HMV and Victor Company back in the days of Eldridge Johnson. And there you go. That's my test of the all brass Victor. These are like hen's teeth. You ever happen to see one, don't hesitate. You're probably going to pay maybe a couple hundred, maybe more for these. The gentleman who found this one got lucky. It turned up in some parts. Often it can be found on machines or something, or in private collections by people who know what they have, and they will not part with these easily, and when they do, it's for quite a bit of money. But if you get an opportunity to grab one, hey, they sound great. I keep one from my Victor Victrola 80, my obviously with my HMV 101s, those that need it, and various other Victor machines, and they sound great, especially when you're playing some of the later 20s records or the early VEs or anything like that. And they don't sound bad either with the old ones. The old acoustic records sound pretty good there too. Okay, that's our test for this evening for the 101. Not the 101, I tested the machine already. For the number 4 reproducer, Victor All Brass.